So where we last left off with the Demon Slayer story, the final climactic battle had finally concluded as Tanjiro had been made to be a human once again. This latest chapter covers the aftermath of all this 3 months later at Butterfly Mansion. Tanjiro would sit up in bed with Inosuke and Zenitsu continuing to sleep as Nezuko joined him in watching the flower petals fall. Tanjiro would comment about the sakura trees as we looked to see what was clearly a disturbed eye. Nezuko would then go on to comment about their beauty with bandages wrapped around her hand. And honestly, it's still kind of a little weird seeing her with her mouth exposed. But apparently, the world no longer has any evil demons. But of course, this was all at the cost of many valiant sacrifices and deaths. However, those who manage to survive must continue living on so that they can see tomorrow. Now, I found this to be fascinating because it's not as if Muzan's death instantly destroyed all demons as we see in the case of Yushido. So did the Demon Slayers just clean up shop that easily over the course of only 3 months, or what? But anyways, we then shift to a conversation between Tanjiro and Nezuko in regards to Tanjiro's limp and shriveled up hand. Apparently he can't grip anything with it. He can move it up and down, sure, but he can't really feel anything below the elbow. Not to mention he was also blind in his right eye now. And this was apparently all on account of Tanjiro having lost those body parts prior to having become a demon. Which to me kinda makes the whole Demon King Tanjiro stunt even more questionable, but whatever. Tanjiro would then ask Nezuko how she's doing, and she actually was doing just fine. However, Tanjiro still felt the need to apologize for what he had done. To which she'd then respond that nobody cares about that, and that the next time he tries to apologize for it, she'll flick him on his forehead. She'd then say that she's happy that he's a human again. Now, this conversation is great and all, but disposition-wise, it's kinda weird to me. I mean, it's been 3 entire months since all the events occurred. Do you mean to tell me that they're only just now discussing their injuries? How does that make any thematic sense? Anyways, apparently Gyu and Tanjiro already had a conversation about the whole situation, as he said that when Tanjiro bit into Nezuko, he believed all was lost. To which Nezuko understood because she felt the same way. Not only that, but he also managed to speak to Yushido about it all too, who would then say that it was lucky that they had Shinobu's medicine and that Nezuko was the one that he bit. And yeah, here's the part where they try and explain why Tanjiro didn't gobble Nezuko up like a Happy Meal. And if you know anything about this manga, you know that explanations are far from its strong suit. Tanjiro would elaborate that because Nezuko had been a demon but became a human again, her body had antibodies. Immunity against Muzan cells, which is just left very general like that on purpose because it's definitely easier to sell with less details. Flashing back, Yushiro would indeed claim Tanjiro to be very lucky that he was able to become human again, that he had tremendous potential as a demon as he'd conquered the sun in an instant and was stronger than Muzan and Nezuko, believing it to be amazing that he didn't completely lose himself in the process. And to this I say, with what feats? Demon King Tanjiro was nothing but potential. However, when it came down to actually displaying said power, he honestly didn't do anything so amazing, and so this has to be a sort of demonic sensory thing, I suppose. Yushiro would then express his admiration of Tanjiro, which made Tanjiro tear up a bit and become bashful, claiming that he had the help of so many people. Yushiro would then claim that it was a joke and go back to his usual self. But as he walked out, Tanjiro would call out to him, telling him not to die, that he was the only one who could keep Tamayo's memory alive. He'd stand there for a while, then leave without saying a word. Tanjiro in the present would then say that he hopes him to be okay as he hasn't seen him in a while. After that, he'd remarked that he hasn't seen Gyu and the others and questioned if they were alright. And I hope he's just talking about that day because he'd already expressed that he spoke to Gyu. So yeah. Anyways, Nezuko would reply that they're fine and visiting the master. We then cut to what was the final Hashira meeting. Sanemi and Gyu were recognized to be the only surviving Hashira. But with the successful eradication of the demons, the Demon Slayers no longer had a reason to exist and would disband as of that day. For years, they had tirelessly dedicated their lives to this task and fought bravely. And so the remaining members of the Ubuyashiki family would bow deeply and express the gratitude of their entire lineage. The two would then pipe up asking them not to bow, as they were the ones who held the Demon Slayers together for centuries. Gyu would continue that the young master did an incredible job, and that his father and all his ancestors would be very proud. And in hearing that, the young master began to cry profusely, as they all did. After that, Tanjiro would receive a visit from Tengen, the former Sound Hashira, and his 3 wives. They were a rowdy bunch as usual, and confirmed for us that Tanjiro was as healed as he was gonna get, and so they would be going back home the following day. They'd soon leave, but not before providing their address and some snacks. After that, we'd get a visit from Rengoku's family, and his father would then thank Tanjiro for wielding his son's handguard in battle, saying that he would have been very pleased. Tanjiro would then say that Rengoku's words gave him strength. And at this point, more and more people just kept flooding in. First the sword makers, then the cleanup crew. It was just a full house. We then cut away to a bit of Inosuke mischief as he snuck out of the room and into the kitchen where Kanzaki was cooking. He'd quickly swipe away some food for himself, which would lead her to scolding him, as he would wonder if she was strong or not. After that, she'd tell him that if he was hungry, he should eat from a plate that was just for him, and that he could eat from it whenever he wanted, and so he should just stop stealing. And with that, Inosuke would give off the most adorable smile ever. And man, I love this character so much. If nothing else, I love Inosuke, and I really wish we could have gotten a proper arc for him, beyond just a fight towards the end. And that goes for pretty much every character outside of Tanjiro and Nezuko. But yeah, not sure if this was a ship beforehand or not, but I'm sure it'll be one now. And speaking of ships, we cut to Tanjiro meeting Kanao outside as they looked at a sakura tree. Kanao would explain that the first user of flower breathing had planted it and that its name was Victory. And she simply wanted to tell it that they'd succeeded. And judging by her clothing, she too was being taken care of medically, so this is likely the first time that she'd been let outside. Tanjiro would then ask her if her eye was alright, and yeah, she was alright and still had a bit of vision, which was nice. Also, the wound she suffered didn't hurt anymore, and Sanemi had apparently come to visit. He'd actually even given her the late Snake Hashira's serpent partner. A pairing I didn't exactly expect, but I certainly do not mind. And wow, this whole portion of the chapter is just a bunch of shipping material, huh? As Nezuko would run into Sanemi in the hallway. Things of course being awkward for Sanemi as he remembered his treatment of her as a demon. But yeah, she'd ask him how his injuries were and would smile brightly in knowing that he was doing alright. From there, he'd apologize to her for having felt unconscious after the defeat of Muzan, which she just shrugged off by saying that she was pretty much asleep for 2 entire years, so it wasn't really a big deal. She'd also confirmed that Tanjiro was out for an entire month, which should explain the timing of Tanjiro and Nezuko's earlier conversation, but it really doesn't since there were 2 whole months besides that. Nezuko would then exclaim that she loves to sleep, which reminded Sanemi of his little brother and prompted him to pat her on the head with those dreamy anime eyes. He'd then take his leave as Nezuko was left blushing with her heart racing as Zenitsu ate his heart out. Soon after that, the Kamado siblings would then see Gyu and Urokodaki and hug them profusely. And as you may have noticed earlier, Gyu actually cut his hair. And goodness gracious, this sure is a long chapter, but we're almost at the end of it. Our main group of characters would then visit the graves of many demon slayers who died in the line of duty and place flowers on them all. To expedite the process, Inosuke would begin to just throw them all around, which wasn't exactly the most respectful way of doing things. And I guess Zenitsu got a bit of a W of his own because when he started his usual complaining, Nezuko would comfort him by patting him on the head. After that, Inosuke would question what Zenitsu was carrying, and they were apparently his grandfather's remains. Inosuke would then ask if it was a snack or something, and Zenitsu got all riled up because of that. And once again, Inosuke is the absolute best. Now on their way home, Tanjiro and Nezuko would reunite with old man Saburo from the first chapter and first episode of the series and hug him deeply. After that, they'd all pay their respects to the Kamado family, and Inosuke was actually respectful as well. Then afterwards, would just go on to live together, having a pretty good time, as each chapter would then end with a view of city skyscrapers. This chapter was at least 3 times the length of a normal one, but even still is not the final chapter of the series. I'm imagining that we'll get a time skip of some sort with the next one, which will be the proper conclusion of the series. Allegedly, it'll be 24 pages long and take place in modern times, so what exactly we'll get is kinda crazy to think about. Now, as I'm sure many of you know, Demon Slayer has grown to be quite the cash cow for Shonen Jump, so we'll just have to wait and see if this final chapter leaves any room for a sequel series. But like I said last time, regardless, we will be continuing to put out Demon Slayer content on the channel, so hopefully you guys enjoy what we have to provide. As I hope you enjoyed this one as well, because when it comes to bringing you some of the best Demon Slayer content on the platform, Plot Armor has you covered. As always, I am Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.